In a recent post, we looked at Chinese interest to invest in a major electric vehicles industry, including mining of lithium in Nigeria. My attention was drawn to the fact that when you drive an electric vehicle, do not always believe you are solving the world's emission problems, nor should you be certain that you are indeed saving the planet. Our deep dive exposes how Chinese nickel mining, another major mineral in electric vehicles, has devastated environments, lives, and complete ecosystems, focusing on Indonesia. The government in Nigeria needs to be especially alert to the safety and environmental issues and regulations for EV manufacturing. Hello, welcome back to Global Business Insights, where we take a closer look at the main business headlines moving markets all over the world. The publication Inside Climate News early this year wrote on how a nickel rush threatens Indonesia's last nomadic tribes, its forests, fishermen, and farmers. Indonesia holds nearly half of the world's known deposits of the metal critical to the energy transition, but digging and smelting it is leading to deforestation, flooding, and significant contamination. Local people are in anguish, claiming that areas for hunting are reducing, fish and waters are poisoned with metals, and the Indonesian government appear to be more interested in promoting mining projects as a path to economic growth. Cleaner mining are significantly costlier and shutting down in places like Australia due to inability to compete with production of dirty minerals. This video clip from Spotlight tells the story many may have not heard.
We arrive at dusk, shift change for the workers here, crammed into trucks and vans and on squadrons of motorbikes. Morowali's more than 90,000 workers are on the move, marching into one of the most dangerous nickel production facilities on Earth. Like most Western nations, Australia has strict environmental controls and workers' safeguards on how its nickel is produced. And we had a thriving nickel industry before the Indonesian government threw away the rule book and let Chinese industry make what's known as dirty nickel at places like Morowali.
We've got a very small window to tell this story, so here we go. We are at the epicenter of the world's green electric vehicle industry. But as you can see, there's nothing green about this. This so-called industrial park produces more pollution than the entire Australian nickel industry combined. And it's a lot easier to do business here. There are no serious rules and regulations. There are no serious safety protocols. But if you're serious about environmental protection, think about this. This place produces almost 11 times the amount of greenhouse gases to produce the same battery as you would for an equivalent production process in Australia. And that is why they call this dirty nickel.
Our footage on the ground and from the air is chilling proof of how Chinese companies are allowed to flout environmental regulations. They've dumped tens of millions of tonnes of waste and pollution, wiping out a once thriving fishing industry that used to provide full employment. That's forced locals to work at the industrial park, where they're treated almost as slave labour and condemned to live in the squalid slums surrounding the complex. Remember, all this human misery and environmental devastation is directly caused by the electric vehicle industry.
It's a weird irony that your country is producing the material for these batteries.
Yes.
For electric cars.
Yes.
Which are supposed to be green.
Yes, green.
At the risk of great personal cost, Professor Aslan Rifki is choosing to publicly criticise the very Indonesian government he works for. An advisor to the Ministry of Fisheries, he says local people are living with the consequences of having the EV industry set up on their doorstep, while we in the West live with a lie.
Our government, I believe they understand the situation, but they cannot have initiative. They have no effort to save our country, as you said, because they think just how to get money.
Is that embarrassing for you as an Indonesian?
Of course embarrassing. That's why I also am very upset. Very upset and very disappointed.
No, the company not worry about my safety or the worker safety, because the company still production. The company don't care about safety.
Do you know of many accidents?
Yes, I know many accidents in the factory.
This is what Wardana fears. This video shows a worker who's fallen to his death because he wasn't provided a safety harness.
We still find that many workers die, injury, and have a fatal accident. They don't care about the workers.
December 24, 2023. One of Morowali's Chinese-owned nickel smelters explodes catastrophically. Barely 6 months into the job, Rifki is called for urgent maintenance on a smelter. In this video posted to social media, you see his team uses a flame cutter to slice through the wall of a furnace, unaware there's still molten nickel inside. The two Chinese bosses running this operation speak almost no Indonesian and are totally ill-equipped to deal with the catastrophe that follows. Rifki is one of the 13 workers killed instantly. Another 8 die with horrific burns in hospital.
Every day, receive report 8 to 10 working accident in the IMIP area.
Every single day, 8 to 10?
Yeah.
And some of them fatal?
Yes.
Jay receives videos of deadly accidents every week. Last October, a man burned alive in another smelter incident. 12 hours later, Jay was sent this harrowing video of a Chinese worker dying of dehydration. And the night before we arrived at Morowali, this worker broke his back and is now fighting to receive medical treatment from his Chinese employers.
We demand the company stop the killing our workers. Our workers are dying for electric cars.
The showroom floor of Sydney's marquee EV Expo is worlds away from the inconvenient truth of just how many of these vehicles are made. Dirty nickel has grown to 70% of the global supply, much of it destined for the EV market. And many of the world's biggest EV makers make no secret about the fact that in order to compete with their Chinese EV rivals, they need to secure cheap, dirty nickel. Names like Tesla, Ford, Hyundai, Volkswagen, and many others. And it comes from places like this. The Weda Bay Industrial Park on remote Halmahera Island, the next stop in our Indonesian investigation. You'd never know we were driving into one of the world's largest industrial complexes. There's only a single road in atrocious conditions. And when you finally make it to Weeda Bay, the disregard for the local population is on an epic scale. In all directions, forests and palm groves are being swallowed. Homes are being forcibly acquired. Once crystal clear shorelines are turning brown.
Now to more business stories. It was a quiet day yesterday for the market as Wall Street hoped for better news from trade talks between the US and China in London. But much could still change with today's US Consumer Price Index. That's the May data. At the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference, which kicked off on Monday, Apple unveiled an operating system facelift and other enhancements which did little to help Apple shares. On Monday, Apple was down 1.91%, slightly higher yesterday at close. Apple is allowing app developers access to its AI models, but still seeing lagging rivals in its artificial intelligence features. There was a new liquid glass redesign with glassy, transparent buttons, sliders, and other interaction elements. Also, when a user takes a screenshot on an iPhone, a new button will send the image to ChatGPT, which can summarize blocks of text in the image or even decipher what's happening. And then another improvement is in language translation. In a phone call between two people who don't speak the language, the phone app can translate a sentence after it's spoken and use an AI-generated voice to speak to the other party in their language. Apple needs more innovation, cost efficiency as it's hit by impact of higher tariffs and tougher competition. Spreading development cost could mean slower pace of innovation and customers having to wait longer for game-changing innovation like in its underwhelming Apple Intelligence feature. And in the UK, the pound sterling saw selling pressure against peers as the Office for National Statistics reported that the labour market cooled down in 3 months ending April. The economy added 89,000 fresh workers, fewer than 112,000 seen in the quarter ending March. The data release boosted the Bank of England dovish bets. In the US, the National Federation of Independent Business said its Small Business Optimism Index increased 3 points to 98.8 last month, rising for the first time since December. Small business confidence improved in May following a de-escalation in trade tensions between Washington and China, though there is still uncertainty over the outlook. Nigeria and Saudi Arabian oil company Aramco are trying to reach an agreement on a record $5 billion oil-backed loan following recent decline in crude prices, which have sparked concern among banks expected to back the deal. The facility could be Nigeria's largest oil-backed loan to date and Saudi Arabia's first participation of this scale in the country. Asia-Pacific markets mostly higher as investors track trade discussions between the US and China, so far described as productive. The US and China are said to have reached consensus on a framework to resolve trade differences and are now seeking approval before progressing based on it. US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said Chinese restrictions on rare earth exports to the US are a fundamental part of the latest agreement, and the US expects the issue will be resolved in this framework implementation. A federal appeals court also allowed Trump's sweeping tariffs to stay in effect while it reviews a lower court decision blocking them on grounds that Trump exceeded his authority. Well, that's all we have for you on this edition of Global Business Insights. Thank you very much for watching. This is Ode Oshosami. Bye-bye.